You're gonna hear a little nice little voice. All right, folks. It's 12:03, so we'll go ahead and get started. If people hop on, I think we'll have this for recording. But first and foremost, thank you all so much for stepping up to being state leads. This is a really cornerstone position for us to make sure that people feel comfortable, welcomed, and we lessen their anxiety a little bit. So I'm so excited to have you all. I'll go back from a PowerPoint to a few other documents, but if you have questions along the way, please go ahead and ask them. I'm happy to chat. And we'll put this in presentation mode. Give me one moment. All right. So as I noted, thank you so much for being here. We are ready to be in DC in a matter of 5 days, which gives me a little bit of a mini heart attack, but we'll be great. We'll be great. It'll be wonderful. Just a highline overview of what to expect. So the general duties of the state lead is to be the liaison support person for our groups. Our groups will be state-based. So if you're in North Carolina, you will have North Carolinians with you. If you're in Pennsylvania, you'll have Pennsylvanians with you. And we are aiming to have groups be no more than 8 or 9 people. So you'll be one of 8 or 9, or some groups, we love Delaware, but we have one person coming, right? So we'll partner them with someone else. So it'll be a small group of 2. It all varies on how many folks we have registered and all that great stuff. But ultimately, you'll be the point person for your group. If there are any questions about our legislative asks, they'll come to you. You'll help them navigate across the hill. You'll help them make sure they are fed. On Wednesday, you guys find food. But you won't be, have to be the expert of everything capital, and I'll break that down a little bit. Um, Secondly, you're there to make sure we're keeping on schedule. We'll hit on this a little bit, but Capitol Hill can be very big. So we want someone who understands that and is able to budget, 30 minutes for walking and security if we're going from the House side to the Senate side, right? And if we are late, we relay that to BIAA staff so we can then contact our folks in those respective congressional offices. Um, you also are the people that keeping touch. As I noted, Capitol Hill can be very intimidating and overwhelming for folks. And we know our survivor community uh, is sometimes told that, this is not the space for them. So they have a little bit of anxiety, but it is the space for them. So if we can provide a community of support, a person that encourages them to step up and have their voice heard, that's what our state leads will be doing. And finally, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you are the person that's going to relay them back to me or our BIAA team. Any questions about the overall duties? All right. So here are the basics. Hopefully you all know that our National Brain Injury Conference, excuse me, starts on Monday with some optional pre-conference events. And then Tuesday, March 4th is our big day. That's our heavy day where we have all our programming and we get ready for everything to happen. We will be at the Hilton Hotel in National Landing in Arlington, which is just a stone throw across from DC. And then on March 5th, that's our big day on Capitol Hill, where we will be meeting with our congressional folks, doing an event with the Brain Injury Task Force, and more. We have about 418 registrants, so we have a very large group, which is super exciting. But that makes the state lead position even more important to make sure that all those people are moving in a very organized way, and that we try to avoid chaos at any cost. So we kind of hit on this in the opening, but here's an overview of what to pack. I will say there were 2 other webinars that we hosted, one about logistics, which covered packing, transportation, expectations, all that great stuff. And then we did another webinar on our legislative asks. Both those webinars are hour long. So if you need more in-depth overview of these items, I will send that in a follow-up email, the links to those. And I will encourage you all to watch that. As we go through today's training, we'll just hit the high level things. And I'm happy to answer any questions one-on-one about any more detailed items. But as we're getting ready, anyone who's from this area knows, but those who are lucky enough to live in wonderful sunshine states, it might be strange to hear that last week we had weather in at 26 degrees and today it's a beautiful 63. We cannot control the weather, nor do we really know what's going to happen in the DC area. So please come prepared and bring items that can help you transition throughout the day, because in the morning it might be 42, and in the afternoon, it might be in the high 60s. So we want to be cognizant of that. Additionally, as of right now, and we're praying to all the gods out there that this is not true, we are having rain on the day that we are on Capitol Hill. So please be prepared for that, bringing umbrellas, proper shoes, so make sure our shoes aren't leaking, no suede shoes, because you don't want to ruin those, all that great stuff. Speaking of shoes, we'll be walking a lot, excuse me. You should expect to walk about 3 to 5 miles in total. It's a lot of walking. Granted, if anyone's limited in mobility and needs to take breaks, we will do that. And please just let me know if that sounds a little intimidating, but it is a lot of walking, and I'll show you the map in just a moment. If you do have any mobility assistant devices, please make sure they are brought. And as we noted, we are doing business casual for the attire. So comfortable yet professional. Something I tell folks, which I think is often ignored, is I do have chubby thighs. So if I wear a dress or skirt, I have what we call chub rub or chafing. So I will not be wearing, skirts during that to avoid that. So if you have chafing of any sort, make sure you wear clothes that accommodates that. And then the essentials is just Highline. Hopefully you all know this if you're just basic traveling and done that before. One big thing, if you have any BIAA related swag, we'd love to see your pride. We'd love to see blue on Capitol Hill, so feel free to bring that and wear it. All right, we're going to do a high level agenda overview. And then we'll get into the nitty-gritty where folks are slotting in as state leads. So, as you'll see here, we have two major time slots for registration, 2 to 6 p.m. on Monday and 9 to 2 p.m. on Tuesday. Um, at registration, you'll receive a folder. In that folder on the left side will be a program. The program will have our schedules, we'll note our awardees, we'll note all our speakers, we'll also have maps. It will be comprehensive with everything you need. On the right side, there'll be talking points. So we have two sets of talking points that we'll be using on Wednesday, March 5th when we're on Capitol Hill. One set of talking points is for our survivor and advocate community. So it's very digestible, it hits on zingers that you can say, and really brings home with why we're there and why we're pitching. You, as state leads, will see the other talking points. And those talking points are for legislators. So these are more in depth. It goes into, the lingo of the bills. And these talking points will be with the leave behinds that we give either the staff and or the member of Congress at the end of our meeting. So we will have leave behinds. It will be probably about 3 or 4 pages of paper, stapled or paper clipped together. We will also be giving them ribbons, blue ribbons to wear with us on Wednesday. We'll hit on that a little bit more about your manila envelope and all the good goodies in there, but want to flag that there will be two sets of talking points. Do not worry about reading or getting into the legislator one. The advocate one covers everything for us. If you have folks who are only coming down for Wednesday, and we know this, no worries. We will just let us know if you know that, or if folks have told us, we will let you know, and we will give you their folder to bring with you on Capitol Hill. So at the first first event, you can give that over to them so they can have everything in hand. All right, so March 3rd, we have optional events. We have a survivor meetup. We have our affiliates leaders meetup, and then an open event for everyone that evening from 6 to 7:30. So if you're there on Monday, feel free to join us, but no pressure if you cannot. And then March 4th is our big day. So this is the day where all the fun stuff happens and all the education happens. So If you're on BIAA board, you know what you have to do is starting at 7 a.m. It's going to be really early. But for everyone who has their sanity in that morning, your morning does not kick off officially until 11:30. We do have a 10 to 11 optional event happening with Love Your Brain. This is open to everyone and anyone. It kind of level sets the tone. It provides you a way to reset yourself during, times that you may feel overwhelmed, and really ensures that we are as strong as we can going in to the conference. This is specifically targeted to survivors and their caregivers or any folks who may need some tools in their toolkit for that. We will be providing box lunches starting at 11 o'clock. And then at 12 o'clock, we kick off with our general session. We'll go into a series of breakouts. And then your time to shine happens at this 4 to 5:30 slot. This is the time where folks have gone through our learning transition of the day. So during the general session, we are kicking things off. We are level setting. We're saying, why are we here? Why do we need people to know about the brain injury community? Why is brain injury a chronic condition? And why do people need to know this? We'll hear from survivors about their stories. We'll hear from researchers about the current data. It's really going to give that initial foundation. And then the breakout sessions, we have two going on, and they will switch halfway through. The first session is how to tell your story. So, excuse me, how to take your personal experiences and craft them in a way to make them compelling and link to our asks when talking to members of Congress. And then we have telling our story, which hits on some data points that we can use to incorporate into that story to make it more compelling and to allow us to amplify the depth and diversity of our community. So you have all these have all these skills and tools, and we go into the 4 o'clock session. See the 4 o'clock session as 3 different 30-minute sessions. So the first 30 minutes we'll have Soapbox. Soapbox is our consulting contracting agency who's doing all the scheduling for us with our meetings, which is saving everyone's sanity because I'm thinking of handling 535 members and their staff and scheduling is daunting. But they will go over their schedule and their web tool. So they use a web tool that has all your meetings listed, where to go, who you're meeting with, the time you're meeting, all that great stuff. This web tool is also wonderful because you can put notes. So if you get a commitment for someone to sponsor something or to join the task force, you can put it in the notes in the web tool. You can also attach photos. And we'll hit on this a little bit, but always take photos, it'd be great, to those meetings so we can have them to push it out later. So the first 30 minutes, as I noted, they'll go over Soapbox and what to expect with their scheduling web tool. The second 30 minutes will be Zeta Ricker from NASHA and myself going over our legislative asks. These are high level, it's a quick 30-minute overview, and we will be sending the hour-long overview to folks in advance, but unfortunately, in any type of conference, there's never enough time, but we'll take 30 minutes there. The last 30 minutes is when you'll be meeting with your state groups. During this time, you'll introduce yourself, you'll learn about people's passion points, and how their story connects to our various asks, right? Which I'll hit on a little bit. But this is when we'll start building that community with our groups and setting a game plan for the day ahead. All right. Then after that, we have a quick 30-minute breather and then a welcome reception. Of course, always optional, but hopefully it will be a fun thing. We'll have food and beverages and it'll be a good time. And then finally, on March 5th, this is our big day. We'll be on Capitol Hill. Things are happening early. So we are having grab-and-go breakfast from 7 to 8 on the second floor, and I'll show you the map layouts in a moment. And then we will start loading shuttles at 7:30. Our first event is with the Congressional Brain Injury Task Force, which starts at 9 o'clock. Then we'll have meetings throughout the day, and we'll be wrapping up the day at 4 o'clock at a photo with the Capitol steps. We do have a tight window when it comes to our shuttles. So in the morning, we will have 8 shuttles running from the hotel to the Capitol Visitor Center. Why we're having 8 is because our event with the task force starts at 9, but security does not start processing folks until 8:30. So we will have to have a very steady line going through security to make sure everyone gets through it and down to the auditorium in time. This is a huge part for our state leads, just to prepare our group. Say, make sure they know that they will have to take their belts off, jewelry does not have to come off, cell phones out of pockets, keys out of pockets, right? So when we get up to security, get up to that metal detector, it's a quick put things on the conveyor belt and walking through, and hopefully there are no issues. Any questions here? I'll take a quick pause.
Yeah, Denver, did you say belts come off or don't come off? I didn't hear that correctly.
Belts do come off, jewelry does not. And that will be on a cheat sheet that I'll send over to y'all.
So Denver, I'm just thinking of the things that can happen, and I imagine at 7:30 trying to get on shuttles and some people in the group not being there.
Yes, and we'll hit on
And
that in a moment
okay,
about strategy there. Yes,
okay,
ma'am. I got you covered.
good.
And something else. So before that, are there any other questions about the general agenda rather than just the specifics?
One question.
Yeah.
Is it possible for people to meet at the Capitol rather than meeting the buses in Arlington?
Yes, if folks aren't at the hotel or if they're already in DC proper, or we know some folks are coming down, we are open and you're more than welcome to meet with folks at the Capitol Visitor Center. We are asking all our state leads to meet folks at the hotel because we are moving small groups of eight or nine, at a total of 400 people, and those groups can get easily lost. So we want to move together as a group. Something you'll see on this slide is meetings start as early as 9 a.m. Unfortunately, something we do not control is the availability of members of Congress and or their staff. So there are some folks who will be offering or whose only availability will be 9 to 10:15, right? And we would have to take up that meeting because we want to meet as many congressional offices as possible. This is a few, not everyone, so I just want to flag that. But that is something you'll have to navigate with your group. That means you may or most likely will have to miss the Congressional Brain Injury Task Force and go directly to a meeting. Or you might have to come late or leave early. We'll go into scheduling of how much time to buffer on the ends of meetings in a little bit, but just want to flag that there are some meetings happening during that time block. If you have a member of your group that is so impassioned to go to this entire event and they do not want to miss it, I would not push back and fight it in any way. I would just kindly ask you to exchange numbers with them or tell them where to meet you for the next meeting and let them journey on their own. Of course, we want to keep folks together, but we're not going to force people to go to any meetings or not go to meetings that they do not want to. With this 4 o'clock event, this is our rally event. Saying goodbye. We want to like a send off something or other. This photo will happen in rain, snow, or sunshine. So please be prepared for that. The only hiccup that we foresee as a small chance potential is that when members of Congress are on the floor taking any sort of votes, the steps are closed. We don't foresee that happening right now, but it is a possibility. And if that does happen, we'll be communicating directly with our state leads and letting them know of our plan B. But just want to flag that as a potential. I don't foresee it happening, but I want to just put all the contingencies out there.
Hey, Denver, I have a quick question. I had saved a version of the agenda from a while back, and it's a little different than this. Will you be sending us this version of the agenda? I'm sure you probably have, and I just assumed I had it, but it's different.
Absolutely. This afternoon slash evening, depending on my timing with the last training this evening, I will be sending everyone an email with the links to all the webinars, this recording, our legislative talking points, our palm card, copies of maps, as well as the updated agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
And
I
the great thing
figured,
about that agenda was it was just a graphic to pull over. So I know it's harder to make another step, but it is great if it's a PDF or, I mean, if it's a JPEG or something, we can just pull to something.
Okay. Yeah, I can see if I can put a PDF as well as a JPEG. I'll try to see if I can download that. All right. So, high-level transportation overview. On Monday and Tuesday, everything is at the hotel, so there will be no need for transportation unless you're staying at a different location. If you are staying at a different location or your members of your groups are, they are responsible for planning their own transportation. For Awareness Day, we will have a shuttle running every 30 minutes between the Hilton Hotel and the Capitol. As I noted, in the morning there will be 8 buses because there'll be a lot of us coming in for that early day. After the initial drop off, that total will come down to 3. So we'll have 1 bus at the hotel, 1 bus at the Capitol, and 1 shuttling in between the two. So our hope is to have 1 at every location so no one's waiting in the rain for the next shuttle to come. Our shuttles are ADA accessible with a wheelchair ramp. Um, we're going to pause there. So as you're meeting with your group on Tuesday between 4 to 5:30, I would kindly ask for you to take note of anyone who has scooters or wheelchairs. Scooter or wheelchairs take a bit longer to get on buses just because of the nature of the lift. And we want to make sure we're keeping everyone on time. So if you do have someone who is in a scooter or a wheelchair who will need that lift, I would kindly ask you all to be part of the group that loads the shuttles first. So loads at 7:30 to make sure that everyone is on the shuttles and ready to go no later than 8:15. So please just note that, and we'll talk about finding people and navigation in a little bit, but want to make that note early on. There are metro stations around the capital, and you always can take a cab and an Uber. Traffic is usually horrendous during rush hour in DC, so just note some time there. All right, so we're going to go over the floor plans of the hotel because you will be moving people throughout the space here. So you can't, here we go. You can't, it's not noted here, but where my mouse is here is where you come in. Registration desk is over here. We have elevators and a staircase. We have their kitchen and bar, a little cafe, but then we have this Commonwealth foyer. So this foyer is right in front of the shuttle loop. So all our buses will be in this loop, which is outside, and this is where we'll be loading and unloading. As you can tell, it's a bit narrow. So it would be a slight disaster to try to have 400 people get into their groups of 8, find each other, and then slowly go onto the shuttles. So we ask that on Tuesday, when you meet with your groups, you identify a space in the morning, after breakfast, of course, for your group to meet. That could be, we're going to meet at 7:15 at the reception desk. We're going to meet at 7:20 over by the Starbucks. We're going to meet at wherever, right? The hotel is very large. There are plenty of places to meet, but having those individual convenience spaces will make things easier as we transition into the shuttle space. And this is the second floor. This is where most of the conference is happening. As you can tell, there is plenty of space. We have the entire second floor. So to have your meeting space and to, tell your folks to meet at a certain area, it won't be too hard. Note that, oh, there we go. These rooms here are the main ballroom, and it will be where our legislative training and general sessions are. So this will be where you'll be meeting folks. We will have a quiet space during the main programming of the conference, so up until 5:30 on Tuesday in the National Hub. So this will be a quiet space up until 5:30. After 5:30, there's a pass-through, and this becomes a reception tire area. But if you have someone part of your group who needs a space to have low sensory moments, this is the space for them to go. All right, any questions about the hotel? All right, I'm gonna share a little quick something with you. So for that 4 to 5:30 slot, can you guys see that? Is it working for you? Is it weird? Okay. This is not the final setup for everyone. We are changing our setup a little bit, but this will give you a little bit of a insight to what I meeting with your groups. So we'll be in here for our general session. There'll be a breakout session in here. But for that 4 to 5:30 slot, we're going to ask folks to sit with their state teams. So each table will be noted with, Virginia 1, DC 1, Pennsylvania 3. And you'll know which group you are in advance of going there on Tuesday. And they'll be asked to go to their table and to meet with everyone. Same if we're going to keep very few rows. We're actually going to put more tables here. But with rows, we'll say row 1A. So 1A is going to be Connecticut. Row, I don't know, 3C is going to be Delaware, right? And that's where people will convene. For the first hour, you'll be sitting there together, listening to the presentation, and that last 30 minutes, you'll be convening. So this kind of helps a little bit with people getting comfortable and then having to shuffle and find everyone. Any questions there? All right, we'll go back to the presentation. All right, we're going to talk about navigating the Capitol. I'm going to zoom in here. For those who've been on the Capitol, you know the nuances of it. For those who have not, it seems this is a little misleading because it seems a little bit more walkable. You're like, oh, just to go from the House side to the Senate side, it's 2 blocks. I can do 2 blocks. It's not 2 regular blocks. With the vastness of this, I would budget from going to one side of the Capitol to the other to take at least 15 minutes, if not 20, just to walk. Especially with recognizing we have folks with different mobility capabilities. So notice that, from here to here, 15 to 20 minutes at least. In the morning, as I noted, we're going to start off at the Capitol Visitor Center, which you can see I'm going on the wrong screen. You can see here as a Capitol Visitor Center. So our buses will drop us off here and here, and we'll go into the Capitol Visitor Center. These are where the buses will stay throughout the day. After the Capitol Visitor Center, you'll come out the same way and go on with your meetings of where they are. If you are looking at the Capitol, on the left is your House side, and on the right is your Senate. Goes Cannon, Longworth, Rayburn. Things go down a hill this way, so think Cannon on the top of the hill, Rayburn on the bottom of the hill. On the Senate side, it's a little not as hilly, not as steep, but we have Hart, Erskine, and Russell. These are being the places that we navigate. We'll go into a minute about the tunnel system that connects all the House buildings and the Senate buildings. We know once upon a time, public had access to the tunnels between the House and the Capitol and the Senate. Those have since been closed to the public. So if we are going from the House side to the Senate side, we will be outside. Speaking of outside is security. So anytime you enter a new building from the outside, you'll have, oh, do I have a question? No. You'll have to go through security. March is a very popular time for people to have advocacy days and fly-ins. So security lines can be very long. Sometimes they can wrap around the building. And when you're within these security lines, you will be outside in the weather. So we need to make sure we prepare ourselves and our members for that. And as we are doing when we go into the morning event at the Capitol Visitor Center, we want to make sure we prepare them saying, okay, remove anything you have in your pockets, remove your belt, keep your jewelry on, all that great stuff so they are ready to go through security. So going back to the map, if you're going from the House side to the Senate side, you budget 15 to 20 minutes for walking.
I'm on my meeting.
You're on
I was supposed to be on a meeting 30 minutes ago.
Whoops. You go budget 15 to 20 minutes for walking, and then at least 10, if not 15 plus minutes for security. So just want you all to know that as you're budgeting your time. These things are kind of obvious of what you can't bring. Obviously, no drugs, weapons, no signs. So this includes rally signs or any picketing signs, what have you. No noisemakers and no drones are allowed on Capitol Hill. This one that says anything on a stick is a little annoying, and I'm going to tell you a way we're going to get around that. So anything on a stick is supposed to be made for picket signs. But in recognizing, once again, we have a large group and smaller groups navigating, it'll be hard if we're all moving at the same time for people to stay with you as a state lead. Some of the best tour guides that I have usually have something they hold in the air, whether it's a bright umbrella, a sign, a pool noodle, whatever, so you can easily follow them as you go around. A way we are getting around this to allow folks to find you is we have ordered a variety of international flags, and we will be giving each of you a different flag within your packet that you will receive at your table on Tuesday. That flag, the fabric removes from the stick. So technically there is nothing on the stick and you can bring it in. It's you'll get 1 in 20 security guards who will give you heck for flags in your bag, especially with the size that we have, but just want to make that known. That when you go into the building from the outside, you just simply have to remove the fabric from the stick. And then when you want people to find you again, put the fabric back on the stick. There's a little hole that you can thread it through, and it's pretty easy. As I noted in the opening, you guys will be the go-to folks for helping others find food. Due to the just different schedules of all the groups, we are not providing lunch on Wednesday because no one will be in one place at the same time and it will be a little chaotic. So in your cheat sheet, there will be an overview of all these spaces, but just so you know, there are 3 main places on Capitol, or on the house side of the Capitol. The biggest one is Longworth. And they have everything and anything you can imagine. Longworth has a really great space for tables with groups as well. So if you want to sit together and still eat as a group, there's several tables there. Rayburn Cafe is a little bit smaller, but there's also ample seating, but fewer options. And then on the Senate side, the Durskin Cafe is the largest one. On the Senate side, still plenty of tables for you to meet with folks. There is not a really good alternative to the Durskin Cafe. So if you are in between, or if you're at the Senate side and going down to the House and you just want to make a stop in between, the Capitol Visitor Center has a huge cafeteria with plenty of seating as well. So you can choose whatever's best for your group. The food pretty much is the same. You'll have a salad station, pizza, burgers, sushi, a little bit of everything. So hopefully everyone can find a little bit of something. And then next, once again, this will be on your cheat sheet. As you're navigating folks between the House and the Senate side and moving around the hallways, obviously we're going to ask you all to kind of know the numbers of how find your office number that you're meeting with. As I noted in the opening, I get lost at least 6 times and turn myself around and look at a sign and realize I'm in the wrong place. So there's absolutely no pressure to know this. You will get lost, and that's okay. There are plenty of people on the Hill who are happy to help you navigate. Security is happy to help you navigate as well. So please use the people around you. But this is just a general overview. If you're looking at the House buildings, it's in left to right order. So Cannon is 0, and then the 3 numbers. Longworth is 1, and then the 3 numbers, and Rayburn is 2. So we have Cannon, Rayburn, Longworth, Rayburn as they're going down the hill. It's an easier way to remember it. So it's floor, then room number, or 1, floor, room number, 2, floor, room number. Senate side is a little easier because it just has the letter corresponding with the building. So SD is Sturgeon, SH is Hart, SR is Russell. We know why we're on the hill. All right, any questions about navigating the hill?
Are there any tips on how to, well, let me take this back. They do have signs for room numbers in the
They
hallway,
do.
correct? Okay.
Yes, yes. They do. And that's the first thing I look at once I get off the elevator is where it's pointing. So yes,
Okay, thank you.
of course, of course. All right, with that, I'm going to pause and show you what our soapbox documents look like. Oh, someone put something in the chat. All right, so I'm going to show you what Soapbox documents look like so you know what information you have. So as I noted, Soapbox is a web tool. So you'll have your entire schedule on that web tool. You'll be able to see live. Meetings do change last minute. Staff folks change last minute. So it's good to have that web tool refreshed so you know where you're going. As you're taking these meetings on Wednesday. But in addition to that, we'll have a printed copy of your meetings that will be in your state leaders packet at your table. But this is an overview. Don't pay attention to these groupings now. We are redoing these groupings, and this is a very old version, so we have even more meetings. But this will give you just a high-level overview. So say I'm Renee, and this is my group. So I have 500 people in my group. I have their address, I have their email and phone number here. And then I also have here who their rep is. So I'm in North Carolina 12th, the 12th Congressional District. Daniel's in the 13th, as is everyone else it seems on here. So that's just a general overview of who's in our group. And who our rep is noted here on the other side. So who's NC13? It's Representative Knott. On the bottom is where we'll have our schedule. So you can see there's only one scheduled here, but honestly, this is perfect. So we'll see at 1:30, we have a meeting with Senator Tills. We are meeting not with the member, because if it was with the member, it would say with member, but instead we're meeting with his Health LA Garrett. This is North Carolina Senate, so this tells you the district. This tells you the party, and this tells you of the room. So we're in Senate Durskin 113. If there's any other information like we have here, these are just extra staffers who will be there. I'll show you a different one. I'm sorry for scrolling on you all. Let's look at North Dakota here. So same thing here. At 11:30, we're meeting with Rep. Moore, Moore's office, excuse me, and we're meeting with Grady. Moore is from North Carolina 14, and this is a new member of Congress. 12:30, same thing, meeting with Ashley, North Carolina 11, have the room numbers, and it will say here that Representative Edwards is on House Appropriations, so anything relevant will also have that there. All right, any questions there? All right, you'll see a double meeting here at this 1:30 that we saw at the previous page and we saw in this page. So with Senate meetings, it will be larger because we have the entire state coming in. We will have to be mindful of space and talking order in that, and I'll go over that too a little bit. But note that you might be meeting with other groups in your other meetings, but only focus on the schedule in front of you to keep things nice and simple. All right. So we're going to go into our legislative asks. As I noted, there's a hour-long webinar on this that I will send to you all. But at high level, we have 4 asks. We try to get it down to 3, but we're going to keep it at 4 just to make sure we're hitting all our bases. Our first one, if you're with us last year, you know this very well. We have the Congressional Brain Injury Task Force, which is our bicameral, so both Senate and House are represented, and bipartisan, so both parties. Task force that are basically our go-to people, our advocates, and our experts in our cause. As you can see here are our current representatives, and we would love to expand this. We have 535 members, and we'd love to have 535. So one of our easiest and entryway asks for folks is for them to join the Congressional Brain Injury Task Force. These folks make sure that our message is being pushed. They, talk about our issues directly with their colleagues, and they also help us with Brain Injury Awareness Day. Our second ask, is the TBI Reauthorization Act. Once again, if you were on the Hill last year with us, this is something that we covered. Um, it was set to be passed last year, but and it was bipartisan and fully supported. It actually passed out of the House unanimously and was ready to be slated to pass out of the Senate as well. The final language was attached to a continuing resolution that was ultimately reduced, and all attached bills were removed. So operations are still continuing right now, but we want to pass the TBI Reauthorization Act now to ensure that our priorities are protected across the board, and aren't up for debate with any other priorities that might come forward. So the TBI Reauthorization Act hits three main things. The first one is our state partnership program with the Administration of Community Living. These are annual $200,000 grants that are given to states to help carry out direct resources and information and case management to brain injury survivors. This is given to the states, usually to a contractor sometimes. A lot of our affiliates are recipients of this, but it's really huge on impacting everyday lives of our community. And these are some of the items that we see, some of the programs we see carried out with these grant programs. The second one is this CDC TBI program. So CDC has a variety of outreach and education programs. The three are on your screen. So Heads Up hits coaches, parents, athletes about how to recognize concussion and the report into recovery, and provides guidelines to return to play. Youth concussion guidelines and how to best support youth after post-concussion, and also provides guidelines to return to learn. And then work injury is post-TBI in the workplace and provides guidelines of how to return to work. There is another national agency who's leading these efforts. So if these go, the entire education and training program also goes with it. And then my favorite thing under the CDC is the National Concussion Surveillance System. So this is a surveillance system of those who've had concussions throughout the nation. It is still in the pilot phase, and its first pilot round was in 2019. Prior to this, our understanding of the brain injury community and the depth of it was, our data rather, was taken from hospital records and death records. So we had, our 5.2 million number of folks who are living with brain injury and disability, which we'll hit on a little bit, and Steve has a really great presentation for us on Wednesday. But the surveillance system did a representative poll of folks across the nation and found that, compared to the data sets that we had before, that adults were actually 30 times more likely to have a TBI, and children 17 times more likely to have a TBI than what the previous records show. And we know, our initial data is misleading because we recognize folks go to coaches, athletic directors, primary care physicians, community leaders, or don't seek care at all. So this was very illuminating with showing actually the breadth and depth of our community. And we need this system to continue to have a pulse on our community. All right, so that's the update there. We did have some agreed upon language that was attached to the final resolution in December between the two chambers, and it allowed for a waiver for states to come in at a lower match threshold for the grant. You guys don't need to know all these nuances, but if you would like to know, our current grant threshold for states is 50%. So states have to kick in 50% of the grant each year. So it's $100,000 to receive the grant. We are the only grant program under HHS with that threshold. Most grant programs are 25 to 10%. But we do want to make sure that states still have buy-in, of course. We need our states to invest in our programs. So as a compromise to decreasing the match from 50 to 25%, there was a waiver included. Additionally, the language that we are pushing amends the definition of brain injury to include lack of oxygen to the brain, so hypoxia and anoxia. And then also requires the CDC to look at the chronic nature of brain injury and the lifelong impacts. This is something they're doing anyway, but we want that standard to be continued throughout CDC and put in official writing. So All right, any questions about our two first legislative asks, the TBI reauthorization and the CBIT? Hearing none, we'll go into the National Action Plan. This is our big ask this year, which is brand new. Up until this point, the TBI Reauthorization Act is the only piece of legislation that hits the civilian population, brain injury population. There are other small programs where there's no, vast federal legislation outside of the Reauthorization Act. But as you saw, it is very limited in what it does. So we are proposing a national action plan to address the brain injury community. We recognize that there are several agencies that hit brain injury, but there's no coordination between them. We have different folks doing research and advancements and internal policy change, but that information is not being shared, and there's no synergy to make sure that we are uplifting the entire brain injury community together rather than just a segment of it. This national action plan follows in the footsteps of Alzheimer's and autism when they were also gaining a national profile for their cause and increasing awareness. So ultimately, it's a plan. It's a way, it mandates the Secretary of Health and Human Services to assess the status and access to all brain injury programs, research, and services through federal government. They are to take that assessment and bring it to an advisory council that's created in this plan. This advisory council is made up of a variety of federal agency partners and community partners. In partnership, the Secretary and the Advisory Council will look at the gaps and opportunities and create recommendations through an annual plan to Congress and report to Congress on what can be done to advance and uplift the brain injury community and expand programs and services. With those recommendations, they are also charged with putting a prioritization scale. So on an annual basis, that report will be updated and adjusted accordingly. And these will happen up until 2030, excuse me, unless it's later modified. Any questions about that? We'll go into the scope a little bit more, but ultimately, it's creating a pathway for a current way to analyze existing program services and research, and then provide a space for well-informed bodies who can make this change to put forward recommendations to better our services, programs, and research. Right. So who's at the table? As I noted, there's a lot of folks that hit our community, and this is just a snippet. We would love to have everyone and their mother on this advisory council, but we did have to cut it off at some point, and this is still a very large body. We have who we think is the main players at the community, at the table, excuse me. One thing to note that you might hear is folks want to see each individual institute under the National Institute of Health listed. The National Institutes of Health will most likely be reorganized in the next 18 months. So rather than to have this put into official writing and limiting us to who we can interact with and who we cannot, we use more like vague language there. Finally, the scope. So as I noted, this National Action Plan is looking at a way to develop treatments that will prevent, halt, or reverse the course of brain injury. And ultimately, they are there to improve all of the following. The high ones, and I think this is what we see, as advocates and those with lived experience in the community. We want to improve prevalence and education, prevention education, screening tools. There's no one standardized screening tool adopted across the nation. Tests and protocols. We want to look at our classification system. We want to look at how we share data amongst federal agencies, which is huge, especially when we see advancements happening in the VA and DoD space. We want those to be translated into the civilian space, surveillance, investment in research, and just understanding the prevalence of our disease and making sure we have a way to keep a pulse on that. So ultimately, it's 3 big steps: an analysis, followed by recommendations, followed by an update on an annual basis until 2030. Any questions about our National Action Plan? And I say all this in recognizing no one is expected to be an expert in any of our legislation. You all will have talking points that will help you talk things through. As you and your members are meeting with members of Congress or their staff, they won't know the nuances of our legislation either. So be open and share what you know, but no one is expected to be an expert in here. We're just introducing the high line summary of what we're asking for. All right, and then our final ask are our funding asks. They're pretty simple. If you're with us last year, they're exactly the same. So funding ask, we want to continue funding for our ACL programs. We want to continue funding for the CDC programs that were outlined in the TBI Reauthorization Act. And then our third one that you haven't been introduced to is our model system. So there's 16 model systems across the nation that carry out research and services for the TBI community. And we want to make sure they're fully funded and supported. And these are a high-level request with the conversations and the goal to cut the budget by several trillion, excuse me. We are going to ask for a lot, but recognize at the end of the day, we want nothing less than level setting, so level set funding, so funding that we had before. All right, any questions about our legislative asks?
Hey, Denver.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, I know I've heard from we have a TBI Model Systems University here, and there's a lot of concern about funding cuts for, as you just said, to the TBI Model Systems programs and DoD and some of the stuff that they do. So my question is, we touch on it here at the end, right? How much, or if not at all, should we be talking about all that's going on regarding these kind of broad funding cuts that have started when the Trump administration has started? Should that be a part of our message, or should we really stay on point for what you're asking?
So we want to stay on message. We want to avoid any language that calls out any individual person. So we don't want to say, well, the Trump administration has done this. We want to say that, at the end of the day, these are the baseline requirements for our community, and we need to keep these programs funded no matter what. So set that threshold, and that we're basically saying in that, do not cut the TBI model systems. These are essential. Do not cut, our brain injury programs. They're also essential. Research is huge, right? We're hitting that without going to the details because we don't have a final budget bill, right? We could go and say, well, we have issues with line item X, Y, Z, but we are not going to be fighting that. We want to do high level to set the tone, and then I and our fellow colleagues who are lobbyists on the federal level will be coming in to talk about those nuances.
Thank you.
Of course, of course. And you're bringing me straight to the next point. So we talked about what to expect with meetings. You all will know where to go. You'll have to wait in the front office. As the state lead, we're going to ask for you to enter the room and introduce yourself and who you're there for. Sometimes, especially in the House buildings, the offices are really tiny. So there might not be enough room for all of us to come in. So go in, say you're there, see if there's enough room to bring everyone in. If there is, have them come in. If not, tell your receptionist that you're going to be waiting in the hallway, and we'll be waiting for your staffer to meet with you. Something I'm sure folks know is we have to be flexible and have grace. So sometimes meetings happen in hallways, sometimes they happen in large conference rooms, small conference rooms, places around the corner. We have to have grace with that. They try to accommodate everyone as much as possible, but as I noted, March is a really crazy month, so we'll have to roll with the punches there. All right. With member level meetings, please note that they might have to go in or go out. Nothing should be taken personally. They have a lot of things going on, or they might switch you to a staff member. Just so you know, and you can level set with your state group, we need to have grace and flexibility. A lot of things change. Nothing is directed against us or the brain injury community. We're actually really well loved and supported across Capitol Hill. It's just a lot of things are happening. So there'll be a lot of movement and changes. One thing that we actually discussed on yesterday's evening call as a best practice is to ask at the start of your meeting of how long you have budgeted for your meeting. Typically, meetings are 30 minutes with staff, but we ask people to plan for 15. Sometimes they'll give you 10. Sometimes you have unlimited time. So set that standard at the beginning of your meeting to ask them, how long do we have? So you know if you have more time for questions, or maybe you have to tighten things up a little bit. All right, let's go ahead and go to the next one. So group management, we hit on most of this before, but as I noted, I will be sharing your group with you in advance of the conference. If you have the capability and capacity and comfort to do so, we ask that you email or text your group members, introducing yourself and getting them ready for a great conference, that you help build camaraderie, excuse me. And then at that 4 o'clock session, you do these two. You ask them about their passions, priorities, and set up a meeting flow. We've already hit on this. We want folks to move as a group, be mindful of time and pacing. We do have folks with various mobility capabilities, so put that into your thoughts and as you're planning out your day. We do ask for you to sit, as I noted earlier, together at the Capitol Visitor Center during the task force event. So if you have to come late or leave early, it's easier to grab everyone at once. And as I noted, you'll have a flag that hopefully will help you all. Let me hit on this, and Jason, this was what I was thinking when you asked your question. We recognize that people have a lot of passions, and like during these times, a lot of folks are involved and fully informed about policy and politics, and they're coming to the Hill as an avenue to express themselves as, civilians and or citizens, and get their message across. At the end of the day, we are there as a larger brain injury community. We are not there as individuals. So it is a main top focus for our state leads to keep folks on message. So if people waver off, bringing them back in, and making sure we stay on our 4 asks and 4 acts only. We also recognize, this can be an emotional space and tensions might rise over time. We ask our state leads to try to be that moderator and bring folks back in, or, have them take a moment to breathe during these times, because we know it can be emotional, especially when we're talking about some life-saving programs. One big thing, and I recognize we're right at the top of the hour, so I apologize. One big thing is I kindly ask you and your group members to not make up answers or not guess answers. The worst thing we can do for our congressional folks is tell them inaccurate data or inaccurate information. We have worked really hard to build those relationships both at national and the affiliate level, and we do not want to break that bond in any way. So if you don't know something, there's no shame in telling folks like, I don't have the answer to that, but I can follow up with our national organization and they'll reach out to you. You can put their question in Soapbox, you can email me directly, and we can contact folks with that answer. All right. Make sure we do regular check-ins, but I think that's our overview. Are there any questions?
Denver, I have some questions, but they're Pennsylvania specific, so I'll be in touch with you outside of this meeting.
Perfect. It sounds like a lot, but at the end of the day, it's people management. And which some people it's a lot, and some people they do it every day. But just making sure that we just have someone who's a little bit more confident. No one's going to be extremely confident in what they're doing, but can help navigate our folks and keep attuned with our group members to make sure they're healthy and they are, checking on themselves and getting the most out of their experience. Something that was asked yesterday is if someone is tired or can't continue, what do we do? Great question. We don't want to take the autonomy away from anyone. So if we see that someone's tired or someone is tired, we want to provide them with options. An option can always be, why don't you stay in the cafeteria downstairs, drink some water, put your feet up, relax. We'll grab you before the next meeting. If they wish to go back to the hotel, they can go back to the hotel. With that shuttle that's running every 30 minutes. If they look a little unwell or maybe to the point of exhaustion where they need assistance, please send another group member with them to go to the shuttle just to make sure we are safe. And then have them come back. We are not expecting everyone to go to every meeting if they don't want to. It's a choose your own adventure. If folks are done after the first meeting, it's not what they wanted or not what they thought it was. Okay, fine. You don't have to continue. If you, as state leads, are at that point and thinking, oh my God, I don't want to be here anymore, we would like to know that so we can replace someone to take on that role. But we're trying to be as adaptable and open as we can and recognizing it is a long day. And especially with survivors sharing their story, it can be emotionally taxing as well. So providing space for folks to just be and listen to their own bodies. All right, folks. Any questions? Perfect. I will follow up with too much information, and you all will receive an email from Soapbox either late today or tomorrow with your first introduction to the software system, and that will go out to all registrants. So your folks in your group will have an initial introduction to Soapbox before you get to meet them. All right. If you have any questions, you know how to get to me. I don't know who Popcorn Shrimp is, but hello. Love that. But I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording here.
Thanks, Denver. This